record this, and then we're ready to rock and roll right at 12:30 p.m. Again, thank you for joining me today. My name is Craig Gingerich. I'm a certified financial planner, accredited investment fiduciary, and a certified health savings advisor here at Rutty. A couple of the basics. Always happy to take questions. I don't know about you. I've had to attend a lot of seminars recently, and I always found that the questions are some of the most valuable pieces of things. Kind of other people are wondering the same thing or are wondering things that I should have been wondering. So always happy to take questions. Today, especially, it's providing tools to help yourself. So it's talking a little bit of general knowledge today, some general tools, but certainly trying to equip you with the tools to be able to help yourself. And there will be a couple links, a couple tools that will be included in the notes after this on our website if you want to access the exact same tool that I'll reference today. Always happy to do one-on-one if you want it more detailed, if you want some help putting a plan together. Please reach out. Happy to help with that. That's what we're here for. And then finally, I've added this. If there's any topics that you want covered, if there's anything on your mind, or, hey, this just came up in conversation at a dinner party, or I've been wondering about this, that, or the other, please send them over to me. Definitely happy to take new topics. As you can imagine, you start running into what am I going to talk about in 2 weeks? So if you have anything on your mind, please, please, please submit it. Make my life a little bit easier. Definitely happy to cater to whatever is most interesting, most topical. So today what we're talking about is what's your number? What I mean by that is how much do you need to have saved to retire comfortably? More importantly, stay comfortably retired, right? You want to be able to retire and stay retired. I'll tell you one of the most common questions that people ask me is what age can I retire at? And right, people all the time say, what's the retirement age nowadays? And that's not really the right answer. It's not what age you can retire at. It's much more what income, right? So if you want to be living in a van down by the river eating a steady diet of government cheese, right, you can be retiring now, right? But if you want to continue maintaining your lifestyle, continue to live comfortably throughout your retirement without worrying about ending up in a van down by the river, that takes a little more planning, right? And it's not what age you can do that at. It's what income and how much money do you need stashed away in order to do so. So that's exactly what we'll talk about today. Hopefully some of you are familiar with the skit and don't think I'm just a weirdo referencing a van down by the river. So first, before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. Today is a really, really broad tool, right? So it's the equivalent of if you asked, hey, where am I going? Someone pointing to a map. If you want more of, or pointing to a globe, if you want more of like a mapped out approach or a GPS approach, it has to be much more personalized, and that's what we're here to help for. So reach out to me, reach out to anybody at Sage Rutty. We'll help you map it all out. Today's designed to be pretty broad, as you'll see in a moment. So what's your number? Really kind of 4 steps to going about figuring that out. The first is determining exactly how much you need right now, right? If you stop showing up to work, how much would have to show up in your bank account each month to be able to maintain your same standard of living? Second piece is let's inflate that out, right? Today's dollars are not going to buy the same. They buy more Cheerios than they will in 20 years from now, right? You're either going to have a lot fewer Cheerios or a lot smaller box, right? So we need to make sure we're inflating that out to retirement. Once you get to that point, you need to subtract out other income sources that you have. So if you have a pension or Social Security, that sort of stuff, back that out. Then determine what the pile of money that you need to be able to live that lifestyle. And then we back it into what does that mean in today's savings rate? How much do I need to be saving every paycheck to be able to do so? So let's dive into it. Start with need. How much do I need to be able to live my lifestyle? I know that a lot of us do not live off a budget. It's fine. There's no shame in the fact that you don't live off a budget, but you are going to have to figure out, ballpark of about how much you need to be able to live off of. So 2 major techniques to do that. The first is working off of your gross income, right? So I know that my job pays me X dollars, and then back out the things that won't be there in retirement, right? So you're not going to be saving to your 401k when you're retired. And there's other expenses that will expire by then, right? So if you're helping with college tuition, if you have kids in school, if you plan on having your mortgage paid off, there's certain expenses that go away by the time you hit retirement. So that's kind of technique 1, take the gross amount, subtract the things you won't have, spend whatever's left. The other side of the coin, other way to go about it is take all of your known expenses and then gross them up for anticipated taxes. All right, so we know we spend about X per month. Add taxes on top of that. That's how much we need in income in retirement. So a couple footnotes, taxes do look a lot different in retirement. So if you look at the estimate that I use within this and you say, wow, that feels really low, well, taxes tend to come down a little bit in retirement. At a federal level, your standard deduction increases, means more dollars tax-free. At a state level, if you're in New York State, the first $20,000 per person comes out New York State tax-free. So, some of the expenses come down from a tax level, and it's extremely impacted by what type of account you're holding, right? So if all of your money is in a Roth account, that looks a lot different than if all your money is in a pre-tax account, or if it's a mix, or if it's an after-tax account. So certainly we're using pretty broad strokes here. And most of the numbers I'm working off of is as if all of your money was saved in a pre-tax 401k, because that's most common. So quick example, looking at kind of the first strategy, if you want gross income. So say that as a household, my wife and I make $80,000 per year. We're saving 10 grand a year into the 401k. Let me see if I can get the pen going. 10 into the 401k, saving for kids' college of $3,000 a year. And we're planning on having our mortgage paid off by retirement. That's another $7,000 in principal and interest. So really we need about $60,000 in retirement, right? We normally live off 80. These things will be gone, need about 60. The other way to go about it, known expenses. Hey, we normally spend $4,000 per month net of taxes. We anticipate our tax to be about 20% in retirement. Well, $4,000 a month times 12 months, divide that by 80%, ends up at $60,000. Right, a couple kind of quick, easy ways to determine ballpark of about how much you need. So that's step one, determined need $60,000 per year if it was retiring today. The next step is, well, I'm not retiring today. What does that mean at retirement? So I included a chart, not a perfect science, but I basically used a 2.5% inflation rate and illustrated that for anywhere between 1 year and 40 years out to retirement. So on here, if I wanted to retire in 30 years, that looks like this section, right? And that means that in order to inflate my money, what I can buy today for $60,000 is going to cost me 2.1 times more in 30 years from now. It's going to cost me a little more than double. So for the math at home, works out to $126,000. $126,000 to buy the exact same things as $60,000 does today. Okay, so we know $126,000 per year is the cost of retirement in year one. From there, we then need to subtract out the things that we're not responsible for in retirement, that we're not going to need to have saved for ourselves. So that includes things like Social Security, if you have a pension, if you have an annuity that's generating income, if you're planning on receiving an allowance from your children because you haven't saved enough and you're going to convince them to start paying you an allowance, subtract all of those things out. All right. For the most common scenario, I said just Social Security. So if we were if my wife and I were each getting 15 grand of Social Security per year, that's 30,000. Subtract that off the 126 number, means we need to find a source of income worth $96,000 per year in retirement savings. And so when you hit retirement, it kind of becomes this inflection point of, we know how much we need to draw each year. How big does the pile of money need to be that we can draw 96,000 each year and never have to worry about running out of money? On top of that, how much does it need to be that we never worry about running out of money and it keeps up with inflation? So for today's illustration, we use the 4% rule. So what the 4% rule is that they've back tested against all market scenarios in the history of the stock market. And they said, if you start retirement and you spend 4% of your account, and your account's invested roughly in 60% stocks and about 40% in cash and bonds, you increase your spending by 3% to keep up with inflation. And 100% of the 30-year stock market periods, none of those situations did you run out of money. 100% of the time you had at least $1 left over. What they don't tell you is that and more than 90% of the time you end up with more money than you started. But if you're not looking to take risk on running out the 4% rule is a pretty safe one. So what's that mean? Take what your annual need is, divided by 0.04, and that gives you what your total pot of money. For me to be able to retire, I need $2.4 million stashed away, ready to go at retirement, right? 96,000 divided it by 0.04, or if you multiply it by 25, gives you the same answer, 2.4 million bucks. So how do we get there, right? Great, you told me I need this huge number. How do I get from where I am today to that point? Well, that becomes a little bit more complicated, of course. So there's a number of factors that go into it. Your investments are really going to drive what the anticipated return is. Then when you start factoring in of, okay, I'm making payments, so it's not as simple as I'm just putting the same amount every year, while the first year's dollars are getting more years of compounding than the later year's dollars. So it's a little bit more complicated of a financial formula. So it wasn't an easy chart for me to include. So I'm going to actually see if I can share a quick screen here from Google. So I just Googled financial calculator, right? Here's a quick tool to be able to figure out exactly how much you need to have saved. So if our future value is 2.4 million and we have 30 years to do so, and say that there's $100,000 saved right now, and I'm anticipating an 8% return on my money. The closer you are to retirement, I recommend decreasing what that anticipated return is, right? So if you only have 1 year, don't bank on an 8% return, probably bank on a 0% return if everything stayed flat. But if you have 40 years, well, you can be more aggressive on your investments. Maybe you anticipate an 8 to 9% return. So kind of cater it based on exactly how much time you have on your side and how your investments are invested. In this scenario, in order to be on track, need to be saving about $11,400. So each year need to be putting away basically about $1,000 per month to be on track for retirement. So some people may say, okay, well, that feels really aggressive. Couple things to keep in mind. It's not often easy to jump from, here's how much I'm saving. I'm saving 5% today. I'm going to jump to 10% tomorrow. Not always easy, but doing an escalation, doing 1% each year makes a lot easier. Second thing to consider is if your employer is generous enough to give some employer dollars, make sure you're factoring that in. I'm going to switch us back to the PowerPoint quickly here. And then there's other levers to adjust from there. So some of the levers that are kind of the biggest impact and the easiest to move, first is work longer, right? If you have that option, you can work longer. You said, I want to retire at 60, but maybe I need to be working till I'm 62 or 65. Dramatically improves the numbers. Along the same lines, if you have the ability to delay Social Security, it's growing, depending on what age you're at, but it's growing a set amount, which is a pretty nice return on that. If you're before your retirement age, it's 6.2%. If you're after your full retirement age, it's 8%. But yeah, it's a pretty nice return on Social Security. Then spending less and saving more is the biggest impact that you can do, because it's kind of double moving the lever, right? So if we went back to the example and said, I normally am living off of $4,000 per month. If I shift some of that spending over into savings, not only does it decrease what my total need is, I don't need to replace 4,000, I only need to replace 3,500 of it. That makes your goal more attainable. And it means that you're saving more. It increases the number going into savings. So it's kind of the double whammy, really allows you to leverage that option. Again, along the same lines, if you can reduce debt, if you can go into retirement without any debt, pretty major impact. I know I've talked about it in a couple of the other telecases, but eliminating your mortgage by the time you hit retirement can mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars of 401k assets that you don't need, because you don't need that extra income. There are some non-ideal levers to move. The first is moving your rate of return. So if you said, well, I'm short if it's 8%, but I'm on track if it's a 15% return, well, good luck, right? That is not changing the assumption, doesn't change your reality, right? Increasing your return is not always something easy to do. If you're sitting in all in cash, we can certainly help that. But saying I'm going to go into penny stocks because that's going to give me the rate of return I need, not ideal. Second option is to die sooner, right? If you say, well, I don't need 30 years, I only need 5 years. Well, you don't have to save as much. Really not an ideal lever to adjust. And then third is working in retirement. And this can be a little bit of a controversial one. A lot of people say, I want to work in retirement. It has nothing to do with wanting to work in retirement. It has everything to do with needing to work in retirement. An increasing number of people are forced into retirement based on either health reasons, needing to take care of their parents, changes in the market or changes in the company, forcing them into retirement. If you're saying, I want to work in retirement because I just get fidgety and I can't sit still, that's great. Save so that you can have work optional. Save so that you can go to your job in retirement, but you don't need the paycheck to be able to keep your lights on, right? No one wants to be. This woman is actually 99 years old and working as a greeter at Walmart. Pretty crazy news story, but still, you don't want to have to be there. So we are exactly at 12:46, so sorry for running over by a minute. First, please, now is the time to submit questions. So if you're wondering any questions, use the Q&A button. Happy to help answer as many as I can. I do want to point out that there's plenty of resources available. Every 401k platform has some sort of tool available. So if you're on Principal or Voya or Vanguard or American Funds, all of them have a tool to be able to help you with that. If you want just the bare bones one, just Google financial calculator. That's the first result that pops up is what I shared. If you want help with an actual plan, right? If you want it mapped out, if you want more of the map or GPS approach, that's what we're here for. That's what we're really good at. I hope by now you can tell I'm a huge personal finance nerd, so I'm happy to help in any way that I can. If you want to map everything out, happy to run those numbers. Reach out to me. My email and phone number's on there, cgingerich@sageruddy.com or 585-512-2385. Please reach out. And last and most importantly, while everyone's submitting their questions here, is thank you. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for the business and trust that you place with me, that you place with all of us at Sage Ruddy. We do not take that lightly. We really appreciate it. And please don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything that we can do to help improve your experience. Thank you. And it looks like maybe we have a shy group where everyone's mid-process calculating their own numbers. So I'll stick on for another minute here. If you have questions, submit them. If not, class dismissed. All right. Thanks again, everyone.